Hey, I'm really glad you're here. This channel is all about sharing things I find interesting, useful, or just fun to talk about. If that sounds like your vibe, feel free to subscribe and hang out with me. I kept the folder in the back of my closet, behind my winter coats, where my husband never looked. It was a plain manila envelope, the kind you buy in bulk at an office supply store, and inside it was everything: the receipts, the screenshots, the printed emails, the timeline my colleague Diana had helped me construct over 3 months of quiet, careful work. My husband didn't know it existed. His lawyer certainly didn't. And when the moment came, neither of them would see it coming. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how it started. My name is Claire. I'm a registered nurse, or I was, until my husband Marcus asked me to step back from my career, so I could be available for the life he was building. He said it with such certainty, the way he said everything: not a question, not a request, just a statement of how things would be. We'd been married 2 years at that point. I was 31. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself a lot of things. Marcus was the kind of man who filled a room before he even spoke. He was the managing partner of a mid-sized investment firm. The sort of place with marble floors and a receptionist who smiled like she'd been trained to do exactly that. He had gone to the right schools, knew the right people, and moved through the world with the absolute confidence of someone who had never once been told no. When I met him, I found that quality magnetic. 7 years later, I understood it for what it actually was. We met at a hospital fundraiser. I was there representing my unit. He was there because his firm was one of the sponsors. He asked for my number at the end of the night, and when he called the next morning, he already had a restaurant reservation made. I remember thinking, this man knows what he wants. I didn't ask myself yet whether what he wanted and what I needed were the same thing. The early years were good, or at least they felt good in the way that a very confident narrative can feel good while it's being told. We bought a house in a suburb with good school ratings, even though we had no children. We attended dinners where I learned to recite Marcus's professional accomplishments the way a docent recites museum plaques accurately and without emphasis. I went from working night shifts in the cardiac unit to organizing his firm's charity calendar and making sure the housekeeper came on Thursdays. I missed nursing more than I told him. More than I told anyone. The invitation to the Hargrove Foundation Gala came in a thick cream envelope with embossed lettering, the kind of event where the ticket price was a donation and the donation was a conversation piece. Marcus's firm had taken a table. 10 seats. His partners, their spouses, 2 major clients, and us. Marcus told me about it on a Tuesday evening while scrolling through his phone, in the same tone he might use to mention a dry cleaning pickup. Saturday, he said. Black tie. Wear the navy dress. The navy dress was something his mother had selected for me during a shopping trip I had not particularly enjoyed. It was perfectly appropriate. It was also not mine, not really, not in any way that mattered. I told him I'd been thinking about wearing the emerald green one. The one I'd bought before we were married, before I was managing his calendar. Before I became what I had become. He looked up from his phone for the first time in the conversation. Claire, he said, in the patient, slightly exhausted tone he reserved for moments when I said something he found impractical. These are serious people. Let's not make it a whole thing. I wore the emerald dress. I want to be clear. I did not wear it as an act of rebellion. I wore it because I had worn the navy dress to the last 4 events and I was 38 years old and I still knew who I was, even when it felt like Marcus was doing his level best to make me forget. We arrived at the Hargrove Gala at 7:15. The venue was a converted industrial building downtown, the kind of space where exposed brick had been made expensive through the strategic addition of chandeliers and floral arrangements that cost more than my first car. I recognized 2 of Marcus's partners near the bar: Robert Ellison and his wife Janet, and beside them, Thomas Price, who handled the firm's largest accounts, and had never once, in 4 years of firm dinners, addressed a single remark to me directly. Marcus steered me toward them with his hand at the small of my back, the proprietary gesture I had stopped reading as affection some time ago. There he is, Robert said, and the men did the handshake plus shoulder grip that seemed to be the universal language of their particular world. Janet smiled at me. She was the only person at these events who reliably looked me in the eye. Claire, you look beautiful, she said, and I believed her. Thomas glanced at me, then at my dress, and returned his attention to Marcus without comment. I was used to this. I got myself a glass of sparkling water and stood close enough to suggest participation while the men discussed something about a quarterly review. We found our table at 7:30. The name cards were printed on heavy stock with gold borders. I was seated between Janet and a client's wife whose name was Brooke and who, I would come to learn over the next 40 minutes, was training for a triathlon and had very specific opinions about protein intake. I listened to Brooke with genuine attention because I had learned that people who feel genuinely listen to remember you warmly, and I had also learned that listening was something I was good at, even when the years I'd spent cultivating it in hospital rooms had been quietly set aside. The dinner was excellent. I made conversation. I laughed at the right moments. I was, by any observable measure, doing everything correctly. It was during the dessert course that Marcus leaned across the table to say something to Thomas, and Thomas laughed. And Robert laughed. And then Marcus sat back and looked at me with an expression I can only describe as assessment. The way you look at something when you're deciding whether to keep it or let it go. You know, Marcus said, addressing the table more than me, with the casual ease of someone sharing an amusing observation, I asked her to wear the navy. She showed up in that. He nodded toward my dress, a small smile. You'd think after 7 years she'd understand what these evenings are about. The table went quiet in that particular way that means everyone heard and no one knows where to look. I felt the heat rise to my face. I felt it the way you feel a sudden drop in temperature, the body registers it before the mind has caught up. Janet's hand found my arm under the table. Thomas looked somewhere over my head. Brooke discovered an urgent need to check her phone. Robert cleared his throat and said something about the Foundation's new initiative, and Marcus followed him into the subject smoothly, as if he had not just held me up to the table like an exhibit. I excused myself. I walked to the restroom with the measured pace of someone who is absolutely fine, pushed open the heavy door, and stood at the sink for 60 seconds with the cold water running over my wrists. I looked at myself in the mirror, the emerald dress, my grandmother's pearl earrings, my own face, which was doing a very good job of holding itself together. I thought about the folder in the back of my closet. I turned off the water and went back to the table. I want to tell you that what happened next was the worst of it. It wasn't. Near the end of the evening, during the remarks from the Foundation's director, Marcus's phone lit up on the table. He glanced at it, silenced it. It lit up again. He picked it up, read something, and stood. I have to take this, he said quietly, to Robert. Not to me. He didn't come back for 20 minutes. When he did, he came back different, preoccupied in a way that had edges, like something had shifted and he was recalculating. He sat down and placed his phone face down on the table. The evening ended. We said goodbye to the partners, the clients, Brooke and her macronutrients. In the car, Marcus said nothing for the first 10 minutes. I looked out the window at the city lights and waited. We need to talk, he said finally. We talked. Or rather, Marcus talked, in the way he did when the conversation was a verdict he had already reached and was now delivering. He told me that Thomas had made a comment. That the partners had noticed, over the past year, that I seemed disengaged from the firm's social life. That my unwillingness to adapt was starting to reflect poorly. That perhaps I should consider, and here he used the word consider with the understanding that it was not a suggestion, dressing more carefully and preparing more deliberately for these events. You're representing the firm when we're out together, he said. It's not just about you. I was quiet for a moment. I was a cardiac nurse for 9 years, I said. I have sat with people while they died. I have been the calmest person in rooms where everyone else was panicking. I wore the emerald dress to a dinner. Marcus looked at the road. That's not the point, he said. I know it isn't, I said. That's the problem. He didn't speak again until we got home. I went to the bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed in the emerald dress and my grandmother's pearls. And I thought about Diana. Diana was a nurse I had trained with, 12 years ago. We had stayed close in the way that people who have been through high-stakes nights together sometimes do, even when their lives diverge. She was still at the hospital. She was also, I had discovered 8 months ago, a woman who paid attention to the kinds of details that other people overlooked because she had been through her own version of this, with a different man, in a different house, and she had come out the other side with a clarity I found both sobering and useful. 8 months ago, I had been picking up Marcus's dry cleaning when I found a receipt in his jacket pocket. It was for a restaurant we had never been to together, a dinner for two, on a Thursday when he had told me he was working late with the Alcott account. I almost put it back. I almost told myself it was nothing. Instead, I took a photo of it and sent it to Diana, and Diana had said, "Save it." So I had saved it. And then I had saved the next thing, and the thing after that. The hotel points statements that showed check-ins I hadn't been part of. The text notification I'd caught a fragment of before his screen locked, not enough to read, but enough to see a name I didn't recognize and a tone that wasn't professional. The change in his calendar app, where a recurring Thursday evening entry had been relabeled from Alcott Prep to simply A. The way his phone, which used to charge on the nightstand, now charged in his home office with the door closed. I wasn't a detective. I was a nurse. But nursing teaches you to read a situation from incomplete information and act before you have everything, because waiting for everything can cost you more than you can afford to lose. I had been reading this situation for 8 months. I knew what it was. I also knew about the prenuptial agreement. Marcus had presented it 2 weeks before our wedding, in the same tone he used for everything, "This is how it is." His family had money, mine was comfortable, but not on that scale. The prenup was thorough. If we divorced, I would receive a fixed sum, generous in the abstract, less so when held against 7 years of my career, my professional licenses lapsed from disuse, my network in nursing slowly gone quiet. I had signed it because I had loved him and because I had believed, at 31, that the agreement was a formality and not a preview. Diana had a friend who was a family attorney. Her name was Nadia, and she had a small practice in the city and the particular intelligence of someone who had seen every variation of what humans do to each other inside marriages. I had met with Nadia twice discreetly, in her office on a Wednesday afternoon when Marcus thought I was having lunch with my cousin. The second meeting, I had brought the folder. Nadia had opened it on her desk and read through it with the methodical attention I associated with the best diagnosticians I had ever worked with. "Depending on how some of this is documented," she had said, without looking up, "the prenup may not hold." She explained it carefully. There were specific clauses. Clauses about conduct. About financial transparency. About what voided the terms. She had asked me to go back and document what I could, verify what I could verify, and continue to be, outwardly, exactly who I had always been. I had done that. For 3 more months, I had done exactly that. After the gala, I called Nadia from the kitchen at 6 in the morning while Marcus was still asleep. "I think it's time," I said. She was quiet for a moment. "Is there anything you still need to gather?" "No," I said. "I have everything." What I had, it turned out, was more than I realized. The credit card statements I'd photographed showed a pattern of purchases at a hotel 15 minutes from the office regular, every Thursday, for 11 months. The hotel's rewards program had Marcus's email address attached to it. Nadia had her investigator confirm this through channels I didn't ask too many questions about. There were 2 wire transfers from a joint investment account modest enough not to be immediately alarming, significant enough to matter to a subsidiary I didn't recognize, which Nadia's team traced back to a LLC with 2 members. Marcus and a woman named Adrienne Solis, who was, I would come to learn, a junior associate at a competing firm, and the A in his calendar. But that was not the most important thing in the folder. The most important thing was a document I had found by accident, in a filing cabinet in Marcus's home office, while I was looking for our car insurance paperwork after a minor fender bender. It was a draft agreement, between Marcus and his 2 senior partners, about the restructuring of equity shares in the firm. It was dated 4 months earlier, and my name appeared in it, in a clause I had to read 3 times to understand. When we had gotten married, Marcus had used a portion of my savings, the savings from 9 years of nursing, from the settlement after my father's accident, savings I had brought into the marriage in good faith to buy into his partnership stake. He had told me it was an investment. He had told me it would be in both our names. The original partnership documentation, which I had never seen but which Nadia obtained, showed that the contribution was recorded. What the restructuring draft showed was that Marcus and his partners were in the process of reclassifying the equity in a way that would have removed any claim I might have had to that stake quietly, legally, before any divorce proceedings began. Nadia read this document for a long time. Then she looked up and said, "Claire, I think you should let me do my job." I said, "Please." Marcus was served on a Wednesday morning, 3 weeks after the gala. I was not home when it happened. I was at Diana's apartment, drinking coffee at her kitchen table. And Diana's phone was tracking the time with the quiet focus of someone who understands that some moments require a witness. Marcus called me 11 times between 9 and 10 in the morning. I watched the screen light up and go dark. Light up and go dark. With the strange, clear-headed calm of someone who has been preparing for a moment for so long that when it arrives, it feels almost like relief. I called him back at 10:30. "What is this?" he said. Not a question. The way he said everything. "It's a divorce filing," I said. "Nadia Patterson is my attorney. You can reach her at the number on the paperwork." "The prenup. The prenup has a conduct clause," I said. Section 7. Paragraph 3. Nadia can walk your attorney through the documentation. À silence. Claire. "There's also the matter of the equity restructuring," I said. "We'll be addressing that separately." He said my name again. He said it differently this time. There was something in it I had not heard in years, something uncertain, unsteady. It would have moved me. Once. We are not the same people we were, once. "I'll be staying with Diana for now," I said. "Please have the paperwork forwarded." I ended the call. Diana handed me a fresh cup of coffee and sat down across from me without saying anything, which is exactly what I needed. The proceedings took 7 months. Marcus's attorney was aggressive in the early stages, as Marcus himself was, because neither of them had fully absorbed how much documentation Nadia had assembled. The conduct clause in the prenup was argued at length. Nadia was prepared for every counter-argument. She had sat with this folder longer than either of them, and she presented its contents with the same methodical calm she had brought to every meeting because she had been through her own version, too, with a different man, in a different life, and she had made herself into someone who never walked into a room without knowing exactly what was in it. The equity restructuring was the thing that changed the conversation. When Nadia's team presented the documentation, the original partnership records showing my contribution, the draft restructuring agreement, the timeline, Marcus's attorney asked for a recess. The recess lasted 3 hours. When they came back, the posture of the room had shifted in a way that was quiet and unmistakable, like a tide going out. The settlement was not the number in the prenup. It was the partnership equity restored to its original valuation, plus my documented contribution, plus a maintenance arrangement that Nadia had negotiated with the same steady patience she brought to everything, because she understood that the goal was not to punish but to restore, to put back, as precisely as possible, what had been taken. I walked out of the mediator's office on a Thursday afternoon in October, the trees in the courtyard doing what they do in October in this part of the country, and I stood on the sidewalk for a moment and breathed. Diana was waiting by her car. "Well," she said. "It's done," I said. She nodded. She had known it would be. I called the hospital the following week. I called the nursing licensing board the week after that. The process of reinstating a lapsed license is not simple or fast, but it is navigable, and I had always been good at navigating systems that were designed to be difficult. My supervisor from the cardiac unit, a woman named Ruth, who had sent me a card every Christmas for 7 years, even when I had been too absorbed in Marcus's life to send one back, told me over the phone that she had a part-time position available while I completed my requalification. "I always figured you'd come back," Ruth said. "I should have come back sooner," I said. "You're here now," she said. I started the requalification on a Monday morning. I drove to the hospital in a car that was now only mine, parked in the lot where I used to park a decade ago, and walked through the automatic doors into the particular smell of that place, antiseptic and coffee and something that is harder to name. Something human, and I felt something happen in my chest that I had not felt in a very long time. I knew what I was doing. I knew where I was. I was in exactly the right place. My locker assignment was 4 down from Diana's. She had put a small succulent on the shelf, the kind of thing that doesn't need much light. She had put it there, she told me, the week I first told her about the receipt in the jacket pocket, because she had known, even then, that I would end up in this room, and she had wanted something to be growing when I arrived. I am telling you this not because I want sympathy, and not because I think what happened to me is unique. I know it isn't. I have read enough of your comments, on enough of these videos, to understand that what I went through has 1,000 variations, 1,000 different names and cities and specific cruelties, and the thread running through all of them is the same. Someone decided that you were less than you were. And you spent years wondering if they were right. They were not right. What I want you to take from this, if you take anything, is not the legal strategy, not the folder in the closet, not the 7 months of careful work. Those things mattered, but they are not the center of the story. The center of the story is the moment in the hospital bathroom, during my first week back, when I was washing my hands before a procedure, and I looked in the mirror, and I recognized myself. Not the version of me that had been managed and shaped and asked to wear the navy dress. The version that had existed before that, and underneath that, and somehow still after it. The one who had sat with people in their worst moments and known exactly what to do. The one who had been told, at a dinner table full of people who were supposed to matter, that she was an embarrassment, and who had sat with that, held it, and decided, no. I am a nurse. I have always been a nurse, even when I wasn't practicing, even when the license was lapsed and the scrubs were in storage, and my days were structured around someone else's schedule. That identity did not require his permission to exist, and its restoration did not require his acknowledgement. I was always somebody. I knew that, on some level, even at the worst of it. And if you're watching this from inside your own version of that dinner table, your own version of being quietly, persistently told that you are not enough or not appropriate or not what is needed, I want you to know that you know it too. You already know it. You don't need the folder, you don't need the settlement, you don't need the vindication, as good as all of those things felt. You just need to remember what you already know about yourself, before someone else's certainty started to drown it out. Start there. Start from what you know. Everything else follows.
I'm freezing. I'm bleeding. Slowly fading away. But don't worry, I'm fine. The cold has settled in my heartbeat, like winter living in my veins. Every breath feels numb and fragile. Every smile just hides the pain. I'm breaking quietly in silence, falling slow without a sound. Yet I keep saying I'm okay, while my world burns to the ground. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. Maybe pain just learned to live here. Maybe sorrow feels like home. So I wear my wounds like armor and survive them all alone. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. If you ever see me smiling, no, it's just my last defense. 'Cause sometimes love means hiding how much you're suffering. No, I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. It's okay. They say just forget. Move on like it's easy. But forgetting you feels like remembering someone I've never seen. I've been trying to erase you from the places in my mind, but the harder that I fight it, the more you're hard to leave behind. Every memory keeps slipping through the cracks I try to close, like a face I should remember, but somehow never know. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. Every moment turns to fragments, every thought just fades to blue, like I'm searching for a feeling that still only leads to you. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. If I never met you, maybe I would know just how to heal, but now every empty moment still reminds me what is real. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true.